So this is my first workshop, so please excuse me if it's like not perfect. I prepared this rather quickly, so uh, I'll try to make this as interactive as possible. I'll keep the chat open there, so if you have any question at any point, feel free to ask. But yeah, let's go. So before, I'd like to give a short intro about what we are uh, going to see today. Oh, Margarine, can't you hear me? I guess if she cannot hear me, uh, cannot answer probably. Uh, 1, 2. Well, I'll keep going. So yeah, to give a short intro, I want to talk first about what led us into building the code-driven params that are at the core of this hackathon event. And then I'll go into doing a quick intro about the hackathon repository that we prepared and about around the core concepts that you guys might be needing for developing a project for the hackathon. So first of all, I'd like to introduce the project from Alejandro, pensado a mano. So this project is the first one that went a little bit outside the box, trying to work with params in a novel way. And we were quite amused by the project. So let me quickly show you how it works. And the idea is that people can use this interface on the right to draw something. Let's draw something random. And then it's going to use the path that we draw with the mouse to output a drawing, or at least co-create with the drawing something. First thing to note is that there is like no communication between the parameters on the left and what happens on the piece. So basically, it was a bit counterintuitive for people because a lot of collectors went to draw something in here and then clicked on mint, which resulted in these broken iterations that you see everywhere in the collection. But I guess we cannot really blame collectors because this is like not intuitive. The fact that the params are not sent back is something that people would expect from the UX. So the trick that Alejandro used is to add a keyboard shortcut to give people the ability to copy the params. So if I press Command C or Control C, I get a string that's this one basically, and this encodes the parameters that I've drawn. So only when this has been set by pasting from the keyboard, from the clipboard, sorry, then the mint will be successful. So that's why it was a bit tricky for collectors, and why Alejandro made the proposal to have code-driven parameters. So basically, the ability for sending back what the UI, what the minting UI is creating to the params for it to be minted right away. Secondly, I'd like to make another mention about Peter's project. So everyone in here is probably aware of the project, probably needs no introduction. It's slightly different, and we decided to pick the project for other reasons for the hackathon. But, well, I don't know if you guys looked into it, but basically Peter designed some kind of SDL language, SDF, sorry, SDF language that's, well, I'm not going to go into SDF, but basically you can design a mathematical function that outputs a piece. So something to note there is that intuitively Peter created a second interface that he shared with artists to basically have a slightly better way to work with the SDF. So it gave us the ability to write some code in here and not have to work with this like single line field. And we picked this project because, first of all, conceptually, it introduces some co-creation between the artist and the collectors. Well, in this case, other artists, but it was again thinking outside the box of what kind of interface params enable artists to create. And well, it was a super damn interesting project. Yeah, I wanted to make a quick mention of it because, well, in this case, it's also obvious why this predefined interface that we propose to for the co-creation through params is really not suited to all projects, of course, because this is like a simple example. Like we have one line to input some code, but whenever we want to have like a more refined control over the co-creation experience, this becomes more of an obstacle when looking at it. So it's in this spirit that we introduced the code-driven params. Actually, let me quickly bootstrap the project for you guys to see. Oh, there we go. So this is the hackathon project. I'll go quickly into it afterwards. But the idea here is that instead of having solely to rely on the sliders on the left or any kind of control that we provide, we give the option to design and define how parameters are changed from the code itself. So it introduces a new paradigm because now we have this ability to control params and we can basically design everything. So in this case, it was like mouse wheel and moving these, but it's just an example, of course. We can really think about expanding to crazy kind of inputs. A small detail is that we also introduced some new execution context settings to give artists the ability to know whether the code runs in a capture setting or if it runs when it's standalone, so when it's displayed as the final version. And on the background, we use these settings to we pass these flags in different execution contexts. So what you see on FX Lens when you toggle this basically reflects what people will see in different stages when the project is being executed. Yeah, that's about it for the intro. I will not go through questions just now, but I'll go into the hackathon repository now to show you the API and a little bit how it's behaving. Also, this is pretty technical, so sorry for people that maybe expected something a little bit more conceptual. It's not happening today, sorry. So if you go to the hackathon page, we somewhere linked the GitHub repository. So this is like a branch of the main repository where we just introduced a slightly different example here to demonstrate how you could be building a project specifically tailored to code-driven parameters. To use this project is same as usual, so you have to basically clone the repository. So I'm going to show you the full steps so that you can reproduce on your own. So usually, I'm a bit lost in my folders. You have to run this command that we gave, which basically downloads this repository in your local environment, and then you can run it. So you can put any project name. Let's put workshop or something. And then, oh, sorry, my phone is. Oh, okay, you can do it like that. Okay, we should have tried this. I wasn't aware that you could not like pull it in such a way. So we'll fix this. Let's disregard what happened just now. And let's go to the branch like that. So it should be around. Oh, it's degitting. All right. That's interesting. So we'll fix this. When tonight you will have the ability to run this command and it will open uh, the project directly. I thought I had tested it. It's super weird. Um, so what I'm doing now is uh, basically cloning this repository um, and going to the branch manually, which this utility is supposed to be doing, but yeah, it's not doing it right now while it happens. I think that's in effect. It's in there. Okay. Um, and we have to go to the hackathon branch. Yeah, sorry for that. It will be clear by tonight, but basically you will enter this state, the one that I'm at. So if I open this folder, I'm getting into the boilerplate that is available for the hackathon. If you guys are not familiar with the boilerplate, so you have access to a few commands that you can use to bootstrap the project in very quickly. So in this case, you first have to install the whole project. So it's going to install the dependencies and install FXLens in your working directory, basically. And now if we start it, it should open the... Oh yeah, I need to shut down the other one. So if we launch it, it should open the browser. Maybe it doesn't open by its own, but if we click there, there we go. We see the project that I just demonstrated before. So let me introduce you to a few different concepts that are new to this code-driven params approach. We tried to list all of these concepts into the hackathon article. So again, I recommend like going through this if you guys are interested in getting familiar with the concepts that are needed for the hackathon. But if we go at the end of this article, we can see the FX params toolkit relevant changes, which is basically, well, it's pretty straightforward. It's the changes relevant to the hackathon. First and foremost, we've introduced a new way, this new option with the update configuration property on a parameter, which allows us to define a parameter as code-driven. So previously, I need to, sorry, I'm clearing up a little bit my workspace because I had opened like 20,000 things. So previously, the update that were available was sync and page reload. So both of these define the one-way input where people were basically... Oh, it's weird. I can see my window reversed on Discord. I hope it's not like reverse for you. Well, sorry for that. Well, shit happens. So yeah, I was describing this page reload and the sync settings, which is like everything that we had before. I'm not going to go into the details of what difference between sync and page reload, but this new code-driven update mode is what we are interested in. So this update feature, this update property defines how a parameter is going to be updated during the runtime. And defining it to being code-driven will basically do two things. First of all, it will prevent people from using the usual interfacing here, and will only let the code update these parameters. So as the artist, you're fully responsible for controlling this. So that's the first feature. The second one is the ability to emit an event to change parameter value. So if we go into the code of the boilerplate, basically the project structure was defined to have sort of the final output. So this is the code we run when we are in the final context, and the minting page, which is the code that we run when we are in the minting settings. I'll get a little bit more into that afterwards, but if we go to the relevant bit, so in this case, for instance, I'm attaching an event listener to the canvas, which is listening to the wheel that's moving. So whenever someone hovers the canvas and moves their wheels, it's going to trigger this function in here. And what we are doing here is basically emitting the update of params, and we are defining that we take the current value and we add or we add or we subtract, because this value is either positive or negative. So this is effectively like implementing with scrolling up and scrolling down in there, which is changing the size parameter, as you can see. So you see that this block of code is effectively controlling this parameter. And as you can imagine, you can design basically anything. As you have control over how you can emit a parameter, you have full control over the UI you want to implement, the kind of settings, the kind of interactions you want to design. The next important bit that we already have with sync params is the ability to receive when a param is updated. So I'm not going to go fully into the event cycles, but it's pretty straightforward when you look at the function. I'm going to zoom a bit. When you look at the function in here, so basically whenever a param is updated, two functions are going to run. The first one is run just before the params are updated in memory, and this one is run after the params are updated in memory, basically. So in this case, what I implemented is whenever a params is updated, we redraw the whole thing. Of course, there are other ways to implement it, but it just gives you an understanding also that you have the ability to plug yourself into the event loop, the event cycles. Something to note is that you could very well be updating your UI in here, right? You could draw, you can emit the params, then you can say, draw with the new size. So depending on how you want to handle it. This is just providing a, let's say, more refined and controlled structure, because leveraging this event cycle, when you reach this stage, you know that what's going to be called here is in sync with the UI. So what's happening is you send a param to be updated from the code. The context that's containing the iframe is receiving the event and is registering, okay, I'm updating a parameter, and then it's going to send an event back to the frame. So this is what's happening there. We send the event, the parent gets the event, it updates the UI and updates the bytes internally so that it's synced when clicking on mint, and then it's calling this. This is being called. So when we call draw here, we can know that it's synced with the view. Yeah, I think that's about it for this new bit. The next one that I want to talk about very quickly, because it's super straightforward, is the context. And by the way, if you go to this hackathon page that you can find on the homepage of the main website, for every section we have linked to the relevant documentation. So if you want to learn a little bit more about, is it not working again? Is my internet dead? Am I alive? Oh, it seems so. Cool. So yeah, in this case, we link it to this relevant section so you can look at it. I got my internet today. So the next, oh, I'm seeing. So Peter, the question of Peter is, does it go wrong if you do not use this pattern to redraw after a param is updated? So truth be told, it's not super wrong. It's fine if you have your own logic in when the param is updated. You can redraw if you want. This is just a way to sort of ensure that what you're drawing, the state that you're going to draw, reflects the one that's stored in the parent context. So it's a way, let's say that, I don't know, your script fails at some point to emit an event or something, but you still draw the UI because you keep like drawing in here. Let's say you draw something here, but this, like, the parent is not receiving it somehow. Then you will keep changing the parameters, and when people will click on mint, they will expect to mint the parameters that are on the right. So in this case, you would not mint the exact thing that you want. I will say that in practice, it shouldn't be the case that you emit a param and it doesn't arrive to the parent, but usually we want to sort of go with the safest implementation and make sure that in any case we are covered. Like, I don't know, if somehow the main UI has a small bug, this ensures that in any case what you display is what people will get when they mint. The next bit is the context. So the context, as defined, as I just told about it before, is very straightforward. So it's a new property that is populated on the FX context. So I can actually show you how it's implemented. It's very straightforward. We just look at the parameter URL, the URL parameters, and we look for the FX context URL parameter. If it's set, we put the value to this. Otherwise, we set standalone. So if we go on the website, and if we go to a params project, anyone basically, oh, we can't see the URL in here. If I open there, I don't know if we give the context. Yeah, no, we don't give. Sorry. We can't see the URL of the iframe because we don't put it. But in this case, we pass the context as minting to the iframe. So it's effectively, it knows in which context it's being displayed. If we click on standalone, it's going to pass the standalone context. So this way, we'll improve this UI. Sorry that we pushed something that wasn't like really great UX UI wise. But this is effectively what's being controlled by the context that is passed is actually translating into this, and you have access to it in the code to do what I did in this case. So I execute some code when it's minting, when we are in the minting context. Otherwise, I always display the final one. You could, in the final one, do some slight changes. So if the context is capture, so if we are running in the module that's generating the images, then in this case you can refine the quality, do what you used to do with is preview basically. So it's actually the exact same. But no, it's a more abstract API. It's one that we can improve upon, while is preview was pretty dead-ended. So we still support is preview, but in the future we'll iterate on this new context property. Okay, so that's about it about the context. Again, 3 contexts available. It's linked in the documentation, and as usual, everything is in the snippet API for what you have access to. So we have to improve a little bit on making sure that when we release something, it's easier for you to see what has been updated. Because this time we did this through the hackathon, but I realize now that it must be hard to know what has been updated usually. So we'll try to improve it, but usually whatever you may need is in the snippet API of the documentation. And in there, you can check the context and see the different ones. The last small bit that I want to tackle is resetting the seed. So it's something that's very important. If you're going to redraw when when the parameters are being updated by the code, you must make sure that you're going to reset the seed, because let's look at a typical implementation of an FXH project, but I don't know. Well, that's not a good one. What happens in drawline? I guess it's somewhere. I thought it was drawline. Oh yeah, there. So drawline is a function that I'm calling both on the minting UI and the final context in this case, and it's simply drawing these lines. So very straightforward. I use this as an example because these lines are driven by the hash. So if I refresh the hash, I'm going to get different lines, right? However, what's important is that in this we use FXRand. So FXRand is a pseudo-random generator that's basically generating a number and iterating on the previous number. So it's a chain of random generated number, but you have to reset it, otherwise it's not, if it's not reset, when it's called in the same order, it's going to yield different results. So we do want to have the same results in practice. Let me show you how it's implemented in this case so that you can have an idea. So for instance, in the minting interface, you will understand why it's important there. So I actually left a note, but this is the main draw function. So as a reminder, it's the function that we call at initialization, but it's also the function that we call to redraw whenever a param is updated. So this is getting called a lot, actually. Every time a param is changed, this is being called. And in here, I'm doing the reset right away because I want the state of FXRand to always be the same every time this function is being called to have deterministic results. I'm going to comment it out just so that you guys can see what happens if it's not commented out. But in this case, you see, every time like I'm changing the params, even slightly, FXRand is going to be in a different state. So I'm going to always have different results. And this is not the kind of deterministic experience we want to achieve with this. On the contrary, we want FXRand to always yield the same outputs, because then if it's doing that, it will be the same result as when it's executed for the first time. So it will be the same result as when we are in standalone mode. So it's very important. Okay, that's about it about the concept I wanted to tackle, I think. I'm just going to go quickly through the question because there's been a few. Oh God, I missed a lot. Is this approach inherently what you see is what you get, or is there a generation of a new random iteration at mint? So this approach, you can still use both. I think it depends on the project you want to do. You still have access to the seed, so the randomization from the seed, which is set on chain. It's completely random, and you also have access to the minter address. In this case, will be what you see is what you get. I think it's still fine to implement both. If you want to have like some properties that will be randomized at meantime, but you want to control some aspect of the piece with what you see is what you get, or with fixed parameters that are always the same, then it's free. You can decide how much randomness and how much what you see is what you get, you will get in the final piece. So both are fine. I think it's just important, and this is something we tried with the UI, to make sure that people have the tools so that they can inspect how the code is going to react to the changes in the states that happen with the piece. Oh, okay. Mark already answered. But I agree that in practice, and it's very much uh, it's conceptual, right? It depends on what you will want for your piece. In practice, I think what you see is what you get is maybe more what collectors would expect from params, or at least they will expect some kind of consistency in the output they will get. But I think it's totally fine if it's clear upfront to them that the piece is still revolving on a decent share of randomization. And I think we should not like go towards full what you see is what you get, because again, this is a framework and we should like explore all the potential options that are available. And I think like to some extent it's also on our end to make sure collectors are not getting trapped by the this disappointment of not getting the seat. So we are still refining the UX, and it's tricky. Uh, uh, this is a complex UX, and when clicking on Mint, what happens now is that we display this sort of first warning that lets collectors have to refresh 3 times to make sure they actually have the same output. So if they don't have the same output, they can see, okay, there are some aspects that are randomized. Maybe I should be playing with this. And this is why initially we had like this little warning that we tried to make a little bit visible by having it moving at first, but it seems like there's too much text or something. Maybe it's not super easy to understand. So we are still refining this UX, but there are like lots of edge cases. Usually, I think collectors are pretty much safeguarded now, just because of this like verification. But we'll run some more tests. It might be the case. So many questions are popping. What's the recommended pattern for PCs that render a long time? You will probably draw. Okay, so that's actually a very interesting question, I think. Um, so if somehow for your project the draw function is taking ages to render, so if it takes 20 seconds or so, what you can use is throttling or debouncing, depending on what experience you want. So the idea is that instead of running draw all the time, every time there is an update, what you want to do is register an update, and whenever a certain time elapses, then you run it. And if there are new updates that are being submitted, only then, and then you refresh the counter. So in practice, you implement this with a set timeout in JavaScript, but there is like probably I never know which one of throttling or debouncing it is, but you can find implementations very easily. And yeah, isn't there some kind of implementation there? Yeah, whatever. So I think you can find it. It's yeah there. It's you have some everywhere. But I think it's very important to be careful about the experience and making sure that uh, the collectors are not going to move slightly on the piece and then have a big waiting time of 1 minute. So there is a balance to find, and this is why I think this is an interesting an interesting way to explore creation, because we've been studying human to machine interactions for a long time now, and the web is sensibly the the place that has evolved to be the one with the most tools to simplify user interactions. Just because it's like a platform that can run on any device, that has APIs to interact with different modules of the computer natively, and as such, it's making it the perfect tool to have user interactions. But also, well, there are lots of caveats that we have to handle as artists to make sure the interactions are being done in the right way. So as Dizimash just pointed out, if the piece has certain particularities in terms of rendering time or certain constraints, maybe there needs to be a particular design where, I don't know, there is a control panel on the left, and then you click on submit with a button, and only then it renders here. So it will be the same experience that I described, that params, but well, you get the point. You will have to find some kind of creative solution to have an ideal experience for collectors. Another question is that about the ability to why we locked the parameters here. So we'll have to think a little bit about if we allow code-driven parameters to be updated from the UI. We really wanted this to be giving full control to the artist about parameters and forgetting about the main UI that we built. The issue is I can wait. Give me a second. I will share. I will share something. Sorry. Uh, so I'm looking at a particular file. Just excuse me. I think it's in there. Okay, I think I have it. Yeah, this is it. So this is not pushed yet, but down the line, this is the kind of experience we want to give to code-driven parameters. And we want to completely remove this panel on the left to give full control to the piece and only have like a small section of the screen space that's dedicated to the overall operations related to FX. But eventually, we want to tend towards having this very clean artist-controlled interface. So it gives a bit of context also on why we decided to go on this route of not giving the ability to control, because down the line we want to have this UI where there are actually no more controllers when the parameter is code driven. But maybe we will add a new update mode that is code driven and UI. I don't know. We'll figure out something. Yeah, I'm lagging so much behind the questions. Yeah, this is like, I think this is Grey Web. I'm not seeing the pseudo in here. I'm just seeing the first letter. But yeah, I just pointed out that there is also ways to design an algorithm so that it's incrementally updating the quality. So there are many ways to have like reactive user interfaces, and it's actually been explored a lot on the web because if we look at the advances in the web space that we've seen, especially with creative experiences. So I'm not going to, I hate this website, but I'm just going to use it as a reference here. So it's basically web awards, but for like sort of techno trips on the web. Usually we see like some interesting, I don't know if I can find anything, but yeah, some like novel experiences on the web, and I like exploring this. Oh god, I feel like okay. So I'm just loading something randomly. I don't even know like what it was, but it's just to show you that this kind of, you have a lot of inspiration to take on the web already with interactive experiences that have been built exclusively for the web and are super interesting. So I don't know what this is, but yeah, it's a good example, right? This is a random one where we navigate through a timeline and have a really creative UI. And I think, in the generative art NFT space, we have really not been exposed to this kind of experiences. But I think there are big components to what GenArt can be, because it's like unlocking new possibilities. And this is what we want to try to enable through this update, and why we wanted the hackathon to feature on this team. So it's one example. I don't know what it does, but you have all this kind of, it's actually pretty sick, like the UI effect and everything. There are lots of new small interactions to define that are more towards UI UX than art. But eventually, I think it's necessary to learn a bit about UI UX practices for it to enable a new field of the artistic landscape. I really like this really small effect. But yeah, I just gave you an example. There's actually millions of these. Maybe millions, I don't know. I have pretty much millions now. But yeah, oh yeah, this one also is fun in terms of navigation. But yeah, you get the point. I'm not going to dig too much into that. Will it be possible to hide the params panel? Okay, yeah, so I answered that. It's actually planned. So it will not be the case in Lens. In Lens, we will always show the panel for debugging. But as I just shown, eventually we'll deploy this sort of cinematic params interface. Can you give 2, 3 ideas of example artworks that one could create? So I don't have the link anymore, but I can show you one of my pieces that I wanted to implement with a similar paradigm. Uh, God, it's been ages. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. So this was basically, it's only showing half of the thing. I don't know if there is sound. But this was basically a screen device that people could interact with controllers that were on MIDI controllers. So you would actually change, focal distance and some like stimuli settings. So it was sort of simulating what people can do with a scientific interface, and having them play with it and change a little bit the light, change the voltage, change temperature, and see how it will change the simulation. But we can totally see this kind of new experiences emerging, right? You can have this kind of UI where people move stuff and click on toggles, something designed to create a real experience, and eventually have some kind of simulation that evolves over time. You don't even have to have an exact state that's being synced. What you need to ensure is that when people click on Mint, they get a similar experience. But honestly, I think it's fine if we start exploring outside of, what you see is what you get, or having a single final the output that you see being closed. If it's meaningful, so if people have selected a particular color and a big temperature, and if they leave it running for 2 minutes, when they see the final piece should have similar features, right? It should not be something completely different. But when we are designing these kind of experiences, I think it's fine to diverge a little bit and propose new stuff. But this is just one example that I had in mind that I wanted to implement. Unfortunately, it will take a while before anything happens in there. One second, I need to check my calendar. I have something coming sometime soon as well, and I forgot the time. It's fine. I have 45 minutes remaining. Okay, Charlie made the teaser, but I dropped everything just there. That's an interesting point, Digimash. This is something we actually want to improve upon. So Digimash, I think params, I'm quoting, I think param locking is a great idea because this allows code to decide what valid param combinations are. So this is an issue that we currently have, and there is like no solution available for it. But let's say that, I don't know, artists have, minters have not like set a parameter through the UI and haven't done anything with the piece, they can still click on mint. You cannot prevent them from minting right away without setting the right params from the UI. So we'll design a new tool that allows you to provide a function that tells if the set of parameters is valid or not, roughly. But in the meantime, yeah, we have to work with the fact that you cannot ensure that the params that are going to be minted are correct or within the range that you expect. But you need to make sure that the piece is going to display something according to the params that have been minted. That's at least that what you have to ensure. Yeah, I'm almost synced with the comments. Actually, I wanted to talk quickly about this. So Peter just mentioned the fact that artists will now maybe have to lean into learning some UI libraries. And yeah, I agree. I think you have like what I would recommend for starting is Vue.js because it's very close to HTML, very easy to integrate to the boilerplate. I think you just have to tweak a little bit Webpack. Um, this could be like the subject of another workshop, but the thing is, when building UI for the web, if you do everything in JavaScript without any kind of framework, it's complex. It's like tedious. You have to build a lot of the primitives yourself. So usually what you end up doing is building a mini framework for the UI yourself because you end up rewriting a lot of code. But eventually we want, I think it's worth to investigate into learning Vue or React. I personally prefer React, but I would not recommend starting with React because it's a little bit more opinionated and it's a little bit more, yeah, I think Vue is smoother with UIs. So if you guys are interested in us providing also a boilerplate coming with Vue, Vue.js, we can also do that. But if you want to go into building complex UI, I recommend learning Vue even before starting because eventually, if you write the UI code yourself from scratch, it will take more time than learning Vue and writing the code yourself afterwards. And writing the UI with Vue, sorry, afterwards. So you will even be faster if you learn from scratch. You have also if you like React, you can use Preact, which is like a lightweight React, 3 kilobytes. You have many alternatives. Um, it's I think Peter is right. Like you may not need React at all. You may not need the full framework. There's maybe even a tinier version of Vue.js, but I recommend looking at a framework that's UI friendly. If you plan on building a complex UI. If you plan on implementing something more similar to this, where it's more an interactive experience, leveraging the keyboard, the mouse, and some other inputs the browser has access to, you don't need to go too much into building a custom UI and everything. You need a little bit, but not too much. Yeah. And also, like an important point is usually in HTML we build the UI with actual HTML, so we build it in there. But in this case, you will have to be because it's very interactive, and it's not a UI that's displaying data primarily. It's usually more a UI that you want to interact with. So in these cases, you have you want basically to implement everything in JavaScript first. Otherwise, it's just going to be too much boilerplate. Yeah. Also, lastly, no, I think that's pretty much it. But I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Basically, I don't know if there are like some remaining outstanding questions that you have. I'm happy to cover this in the next 7 minutes or so. Then I'll cut the workshop. Hopefully, it was helpful. I went a bit fast about many concepts. I hope it wasn't like too fast. In any case, I recommend again starting. If you join a little bit late, I recommend starting with the hackathon article where uh, we go through all the requirements and everything, but also you have a link to the boilerplate project with the branch that you have to get. And you also have this list of relevant changes. So I'm repeating, but I think almost everything is needed for you with this like few components. If you already know how to use FX, you already have with this new data, you have the ability to do anything UI wise. Just a matter of plugging the pieces together. I wasn't aware that there's been some projects with React on FX. I've not seen any outstanding UI project, but I've like missed a lot of projects, truth be told. I don't even know if like I'm searching for React or something, we can find something. Yeah, React isn't a keyword that's Vue. Yeah, but Vue neither. So yeah, Angular. Ah, it's a joke. Come on, no one is doing this. I don't know if you guys have like some links. I'd be happy to check these. But yeah, I'm super excited to be told like of all the updates that we did. Besides launching params, this is like the first time that we are really seeing how it can uh, be leveraged in a creative way on the platform. Because what we've seen of params, it being very constrained, is not what we aimed for initially. We aimed for it to be what code driven is going to provide for params. I think this is more what was in our mind in the beginning. So I'm super excited to see all the projects that are going to come, because this is now an opportunity to create new genres on the platform, building on what has been built in that interactive space for many years by great artists. But yeah, I think we are at a time where there's like an opportunity to explore uh, a new field in generative art space. Again, that's been explored outside of the NFT space, but oh, that's nice. Svelte, yeah. Cool, guys. So I think I'll wrap this up. Thanks a lot for staying there. I did my best. It was my first workshop. I tried to cover everything I had in mind. Again, if you have like remaining questions, feel free to go on the hackathon channel that's been created. It's been linked by Marcus in this channel, but you can find it under the well-known price discussion channel on the Discord. So I think you will know where to find the price discussion channel. I have no doubt. Great. Well, thanks everyone, and please create exciting stuff. Like every day, I'm like refreshing the list of projects to see what's going to be built with this. So yeah, really looking forward to see what new trends emerge from this and crazy ideas that we see. Cool, guys. I can't see the nicknames. I don't want to invite anyone on stage because I want to wrap this up in the next 2 minutes. So sorry for that. But again, thanks a lot, and see you out there. Bye bye.